Hello there, my name's Ian Mills and I work here at the Met Office College. Today we're going to talk about climate change, but first of all, before we can do that, we need to understand what climate is. Weather is what we see each day. Look out of the window now. What's the weather doing? Is it sunny or is it raining? Is it cloudy or snowing? Is it warm or cold? Whatever it's doing now, that's the weather. The weather can change hour by hour and day by day. Climate, on the other hand, is how the weather changes over a long period. For example, maybe over 30 years, 100 years, or even thousands of years. When we look at the world, we can split it up into different climate zones. For example, here in Great Britain, we call our type of climate temperate. This means our climate isn't very hot like it might be in the Sahara Desert, or very cold like it is at the North Pole. In a similar way, when we average the weather out over a period of time, it is not really very wet in Great Britain or very dry, although if you get caught in the rain on the way home from school, you may think it's very wet. But in comparison with places like India, where they get torrential heavy rain during the monsoons, even the heavy rain we get here in Britain is nearly dry by comparison. Another example of a type of climate is the Sahara Desert. This is called an arid climate. Here the climate is very dry and hot. For example, the average maximum temperature in England is about 23 degrees centigrade. In the Sahara, the average maximum temperature is around 40 degrees centigrade. So when we think of climate, we think of averages over a long period of time. The weather at a particular time on a particular day may be very different from this. Now that we understand what climate is, let's go on to look at climate change. The things going on around the world affect our climate. We need to understand how the air around the Earth works together with the oceans, with the large areas of ice at the North and South Poles, and how plants and trees affect the air. This system is very complicated and is made more difficult because the air is made up of different gases, and the amount of these gases in the air is constantly changing. Our sun gives us all our heat. Without the sun and the air of our atmosphere, our world would be very different. So it is important that we understand how the sun, the air, the land and the sea all work together to keep the air fresh and at a comfortable temperature for us to live. The air surrounding our world acts like a duvet and stops all the heat escaping away into space. If it didn't do this, the world would be a very cold place indeed. If you go into a greenhouse on a sunny day, you've probably noticed how much warmer it is in the greenhouse. This is because the panes of glass in the greenhouse stop the heat escaping into space. Some of the gases in the air act just like the glass, and these gases stop the heat escaping from the earth. These special gases are known as greenhouse gases, and one very important greenhouse gas is carbon dioxide. If these greenhouse gases weren't present, then the world would be very much colder, so cold that the earth would be uninhabitable to most forms of life. However, if these gases increase, then the earth will become a little bit warmer. This is known as the greenhouse effect. For tens of thousands of years, the Earth's climate has changed. Sometimes a little warmer, sometimes a little cooler. When the climate cools, the Earth may have an ice age. When it warms up again, the ice retreats back to the North and South Poles. On shorter timescales of just a few years, ocean currents cause the climate to warm and cool. So we can see from this that for many thousands of years, the Earth's climate has warmed at some times and cooled at others. But until recently, even with the wobbles in temperature, the world's temperature has remained fairly steady. Recently, during the last 100 years or so, there has been an unusual increase in the Earth's average temperature. The Earth is becoming a little bit warmer. This has been accompanied by extremes of weather. We have seen big storms with strong winds and heavy rain here in Great Britain. We have also seen heat waves in other parts of Europe. And in the spring of 2011, we saw a particularly long, fine, warm and dry spell of weather. So why is it getting warmer now? If we look at the graph of temperature over the last 11,000 years or so, we can see that although the temperature bobbed up and down from time to time, On average, it was reasonably steady. The average temperature of the world was around 14 degrees centigrade. In the last century, the world's climate has started to change rapidly. Scientists don't think this increase in temperature is just a temporary blip. It is thought that this is a long-term change in our climate, and it is happening at an unusually quick rate. How do we know whether this change is due to us or just a natural change in the Earth's temperature? Many things can cause our climate to warm up. More energy from the sun, changes in ocean currents, or an increase in the greenhouse effect. Scientists don't think that the sun or other natural changes in the climate are the cause of the recent increase in temperature. They think that it is because of the increasing amounts of greenhouse gases in our air. One of the important greenhouse gases is carbon dioxide. We produce carbon dioxide in lots of ways. You and I breathe out carbon dioxide, but a far larger amount of carbon dioxide is produced when, for example, we use fuel in our cars, our lorries and planes, and in other forms of transport. Power stations produce carbon dioxide when they make our electricity. Industry uses power and also produces carbon dioxide. Burning oil and coal to produce this energy is called burning of fossil fuels. The amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has increased by about a third in the last 2,000 years. Once the carbon dioxide has been produced, it stays in our atmosphere for a very long time. Because we are producing more carbon dioxide, it has continued to build up. We also get carbon dioxide naturally from the oceans, land and vegetation, animals breathing and volcanoes. Carbon dioxide is then taken in by trees and plants, especially when they are growing, by rocks and by the oceans. This process has been going on for thousands of years, keeping the levels of carbon dioxide at nearly the same level. However, we have seen an increase in carbon dioxide in our atmosphere recently. This can't be explained by just these natural processes. Something else must be happening to increase the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. The world has warmed up by nearly a degree centigrade in the last century. As well as this, we have seen extremes of weather, such as heat waves and heavy rains. These changes are very unusual and cannot be explained just by the natural cycle. Although the world's temperature has got warmer at times and cooler at others, what we need to look for is the long-term trend in the temperature, and recently this has been increasing. We believe this has been caused by human activity.